It wouldn't be an Oracle presentation if we didn't have a safe harbor statement. So of course we're going to talk a lot about roadmap. Things can and do change, so just understand when we present a roadmap, talk about futures, it's not a promise or a commitment to deliver. Sometimes those things will change, sometimes they will not, but just make sure you understand that. So from an agenda standpoint, first of all, let's give you an HFM update. How many people went to the Sunday symposium? Okay. Some of that's going to be a rehash of what happened on the Sunday symposium, smaller venue. You can ask any questions if you want. Do a little discussion about FCCS, Financial Consolidation and Close. Cloud, just talk about what that is if you don't know, and help you understand a little bit what's happening with that solution. And I know there's a lot of people kind of wondering, okay, from an HFM, FCCS, what do I do? What are the different options, things like that. So we'll discuss that as well. So we're going to kind of cover all those topics in a rolling 1 hour. So let's start off talking about FM and what's happening with FM. How many people in here own HFM? I literally, on every slide, I'm going to ask a question and force you to raise your hand, so just be prepared. This is an interactive session. How many people are on HFM 11122? Really? Cool. All right, no, it's fine. 2.3. Okay, a lot of 2.3. 2.4. Something else. Anyone? Anyone? No? There's always like a 931 or something hidden out there. You never know. I started on HFM on 1.2, so it tells you, one, I've been around a long time, but two, I've been through many different iterations of the HFM platform, which is kind of a cool thing to experience. And I recognize faces out there who've had that similar journey. So 1.2.4 for folks who are on 1.2.3 is probably one of those things you're thinking about, do we upgrade to it? What does it mean? 1.2.4 really had two benefits to it, or two main drivers when we released it. One, we wanted to give options outside of just Windows. So those options are basically Windows or Linux or Solaris, but only on the Exalytics platform. If you're saying, okay, Rich, but I have no idea what the Exalytics platform is, it's Oracle's hardware and software engineered together. Basically, you get a box from Oracle that's engineered to work with our software. So there is no commodity support for Linux and things like that outside of Exalytics. Just something to pay attention to. The other thing that we did in this release was we said, let's make the software faster. I've done this job a long time. Every time I do a roadmap update and I talk about features, people always say, is it faster? So this is the first release where basically we legitimately just focus on making it faster. And it is, right? So that's the fundamental driver of this. It depends on your application and other factors, but this release really focused on performance across the board. Before I go on to that, performance isn't just consolidations. That's the one thing a lot of people care about. It's also security, data loads, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. End user actions are faster as well. So kind of across the board, the experience, the performance, the actions should be a lot faster in 1.2.4. So those were kind of the two drivers that we focused on. Additionally, because most of you probably use FDM EE, actually the 1.2.3 people are probably on classic FDM, right? Yeah, okay. So FDM EE is your only choice in 1.2.4. 1.2.3 had that bridge where you could do both. In 1.2.4, it's just FDM EE. And the focus on there was you can now use every application as a source and a target. So that basically means you can extract out of HFM, you can extract out of anything and load into anything else. So it really, because the restriction before used to be Hyperion applications were only targets, they weren't sources. So it really now sits in the middle of all data integrations. If you've seen Mike Casey do a presentation, which is actually going on right now in another room, there's right back to GL. There's all types of things that can be done using FDM EE. This tool also helps bridge you to the cloud. So FDM EE will also plug into all of our cloud apps as well. It will also extract from our cloud apps as well. So it really does sort of sit in the middle of everything and manage that the data interaction. So when I talked about faster, our numbers are roughly 2 to 5 times faster. I've seen up to 18 times faster. Unique hierarchy, sort of the data values were kind of perfect for that scenario. But in general, performance is going to be faster. So if you're 1.2.3 going to 1.2.4, you're going to get definite performance gains out of that. Lots of different things that we did to make that happen. We sort of list them up there. but they're all fundamentally designed about making the application more efficient, more optimized. So the question you should all ask on this slide is, what happened to the 10%? I actually don't know, but it's actually, that's what it always makes me think. Of the people we talked to, 90% said it's made their process faster. Okay, so that's a good thing. That sort of proves out what we said. That shows all the application testing that we do. I want to say there's roughly 1,000 customers using 124, so it's, this is pretty broad acceptance. It's been out for, I think, 2 years with a bunch of patching. So there's a lot of stuff out there. This isn't something that just happened. One of the things that we do from our process now, because obviously we have cloud applications as well, and the cloud follows a different model in how it does patching. So we've started to follow that model when we look at what we do from an on-prem standpoint as well. What that means is we do smaller patch set updates, PSUs, with features. So in the past, you always had to wait for a major release, and that major release had a whole bunch of features, and you sort of were challenged to absorb those. The way we do it now, and this is kind of the way the cloud works, is we do some more incremental updates, and those incremental updates can have smaller, more impactful features. So it's kind of a cool, different approach. It also just means your version gets subtle refreshes as you move through the life cycle of it. The other thing is there are often times where we might do something on the cloud that introduce relevant cloud innovations. We might do some things in the cloud that say, hey, guess what? This makes sense not only for what we're doing here, but also back on-prem. So we'll do those things as well. So there's a sort of this interesting little innovation machine that happens where different things across different platforms can be released. I'll give you an example of that when we get forward a little bit. So I know I said 11124 has been around for a little bit of time. We've actually had a bunch of PSUs on top of it. One of the things that we did in 124 when we released it was we got rid of copy app. And pretty much everybody said, oh my God, it's the worst thing in the whole world. Why would you ever do that? So that's been reversed. So if for some reason you think that copy app doesn't exist, don't worry about it. That got fixed a long time ago, but you never know where people have gotten all their latest updates. And Mr. Eric Erickson is telling us it's actually better, so we've improved on that. So, but I know you never know when someone sees a presentation you do, so sometimes you got to catch people up on where we are. 200 is the latest feature update patch set, right? So remember when I said we do PSUs that have features? Those tend to be 100, 200, 250, like kind of more major numbers. The little ones like this tend to be more defect fixes or minor updates. So in 200, and I just say this because I think there are people who are probably on 200 who don't know this, and then there are people who are thinking about going to 124 who probably wouldn't know this either. We've added some cool new features. The first one, that Journals Workbench, basically is everything you can do in managed journals today on the web, you can do in SmartView. So you can do all of your journal activities in SmartView. One of the really neat things you can do is if I'm working in a grid, a SmartView grid, or if I have anything in SmartView, I can right-click on a cell or highlight or multi-select cells, right-click and say Create Journal, and it will bring over the entire point of view with all the details for that journal. So if you're someone who just loves doing all your analysis and activity in Excel, and then you got to jump over to the web because you notice an issue and you post a journal, you don't have to do that anymore. You can do it all directly in SmartView. It's basically the exact same thing. So there's some neat stuff that you can do there. Insights is basically gives you access to your environment. So it shows you for your application or your environment all the application details. It kind of creates a dashboard of information across things like system messages, users on the system, most recent tasks, any error log messages. Everything in a one-stop shop. What's the CPU activity? What's the memory activity? And you can refresh it. You can have it auto-refresh. So if during the close you want to really monitor your server for what's going on, that's a great place to do it. So it just takes all these different places, system messages, all those different areas, brings it all together, puts some reporting on top of it. It's a good admin activity, definitely during the close, to have that information available. Rules profiling offers you the ability to look at your rules and say, where is time being spent? Where's my bottleneck? Doesn't solve the bottleneck, but it tells you where time is being spent. So if you do some updates on your rules, you run a consolidation, it takes forever versus before, you can profile that, and it will tell you where is it a certain calculation, is it a certain group of entities, but it'll point to you where the issue is, so then you can go ahead and try to figure out why that's happening. Key thing to note, do not leave rules profiling on. Only turn it on, use it, turn it off. It's a dog, right? It's doing a lot of profiling, it's using a lot of activity, it's writing a lot of information to the server. It is an activity that you do to debug, it's not an activity that you leave on. Important point. The coolest thing from a user standpoint is any form or grid you can now display as a chart. So you can go ahead and take any of your data grids, any of your data forms, and you can display those as pie chart, bar chart, donut chart, line chart, all those different kind of charting options, 3D, non-3D, everything you want to do is available to you today. Automatically turned off. We don't want everyone to upgrade and all of a sudden have 100 different charts and no data, right? So it would confuse you. But if you just open up the grid pane options on the right, you'll see a charting option. Your option is show grid, show chart, or show both. Right? Grid's pretty straightforward. It's what you have today. Chart just gets rid of the data and presents it however you want however you want the chart to be. And both kind of layers them up and down. If you think about that, that gives you a little bit of dashboarding options in the software today that you really didn't have before. No, this is not OFMA. No, this does not require OBI. This is just native part of the software. But it's available for you to do. You can save the grid definition or the form definition to include whatever charting option you say. So by default, they're all basically just show grid. But if you change it to chart and you save it, that will be the new definition that everyone will see. So I think that's a cool little way to add some new visualizations to the software. These are all available today, right? There's nothing here that you can't do today if you're on the most current HFM version. So we have a 205 patch. I know there's probably some customers who are waiting for that because there's some important fixes in here. This is due out probably either end of this week or early next week. Happy 4th of July. That will, and has a bunch of issues fixed in that. There's roughly, I think 29 is now 30 or 31 issues that are addressed in that. This is predominantly a defect fixing PSU, but certainly one that we think will have some benefits to any HFM customer. It also has a minor feature. So in this release, we're adding to our Insights. Remember, Insights was the server or the application monitoring where I can go in and see all the activities that are happening. You now can go in and see all activities about your data tables. You can see all my invalid data, zero value. This is something useful if your application's growing and you want to understand how is my database growing, what's the different data structures, do I need to do any actions? The question people ask is, can I action on that data? You can't, there's no button that says delete invalid records from here, but it will tell you within your data tables if there are any issues. So this is being introduced as part of this patch. This is a perfect example of a cloud innovation being pushed back to on-prem. If you think in the cloud, we're managing all of these environments, all of these servers, so obviously we want to monitor all of the application statistics, the data tables, and make sure we can proactively head off any issues. So this is a great example where we said we developed something, and we said this makes a lot of sense for on-prem app too, so we push that functionality back. So that takes us up to our next major, which would be 11.124.250. So 250 is basically focusing on defect fixes and automatic consolidations. The way I always describe this is 11.124 is super fast, right? So you go to the fastest release, consolidations are quicker, but you still have to run them. This is designed to sit in the background and when it sees impacted data, consolidate it. So it basically is just a background job running that says, if I all of a sudden need a consolidation, I will run that consolidation. It can be configured. So you can say, only run this for this scenario or this scenario year period combination. You can basically pick that. It can be turned off. So if you say, great feature, Rich, I don't want it, cool. your option. And you can also, it also is smart enough to say, hey, the server's super busy with users running intercompany reports and other things. I don't want it to run a consolidation because it's just going to basically hog resources from them, so it won't run. But if it sees there's available resources, it will run. If all of a sudden a bunch of users come on and start doing stuff, it will say, time for me to stop, and it will back away. But in the meantime, it got work done, right? So it's all designed to basically utilize your hardware. Hardware is a lot more available now. There's a lot more CPU. There's just a lot more resources sitting there. We're just trying to use it when it's available. Simplest example, you post a journal entry, the system will just do the consol for you. You don't have to worry about it. Now, I know a lot of people give me different use cases where their users might get confused. I think the reality is if you leave it running in the background and still follow your own process, you'll see benefit and you'll eventually change that process. But either way, this will be highly configurable, but it will still add value to the process. So that's kind of the focus of 250. We just think that's really cool, so we want to get that out. That's a perfect example of an incremental update that historically in the past would have had to wait for 11.2. Did you have a question? Yeah. What's the other question?
Yeah, the other question is, will it do different types of consolidation or just
Right. So I'm being recorded, so I have to repeat questions. So the question is, when will this be available? And can it do different types of consolidations? So 250 is basically scheduled right now for roughly end of year. Safe harbor always applies on these things, but that's the current kind of timeline for that. It currently won't run like consolidate all with data. It's just an impacted consol. We can add the other ones, and we probably will, but we want to get it out there and kind of let it loose in the world before we start expanding on it. My dream would be this thing you never have to run a consolidation because this thing is smart enough to take care of everything, but we got to start somewhere. When you change that layer, right, that server console layer, you got to be a little conservative. Like we slowed down releasing that because we wanted to get some bug fixing done ahead of time because we felt like let's get the platform kind of in a really good spot before we put that out. But long story short, it will, roughly into the year, early next year, and only impacted. Yes, sir. So the question was, will this stuff be available to HTTP Hyperion tax provisioning as well? Yeah. HTTP runs on is an HFM application, so yes. So after 250, we roll into 300. 300's focus is basically the first item, what we call expanded dashboards. I like to say file new dashboard. So if you think about today, you can take a grid or a form, and you can represent it as a chart. But it's still, you start with a grid and a form. You still can't kind of arrange it. You can't make a pretty dashboard, right? Typically, a pretty dashboard has multiple sort of reports bundled together, different types of views. That's what this will do. It'll basically take that existing grid and form as a chart technology, but lets you assemble them together. Maybe you want to have 3 charts together, 3 pie charts from different data queries, and then at the bottom something else. You'll be able to do that. So file new dashboard versus today, any chart that you want to look at is coming through a grid or a form. It's the natural progression of that. So we're trying to make the consolidation process easier. We sped up the product in 1.2.4. We're trying to, even make that automation of consolidations even better in 250, and then in 300, give the users more visualizations. If you've seen the cloud products, they have really cool dashboarding. We're trying to bring some of that benefit back to the on-prem world as well. I don't think it'll ever be as good as what the cloud can do just because of some of the technology things, but it will give you that definite level of visualization that you don't have today. Once again, this is not OFMA, this is not OBI, it's just native part of the solution. That means you don't have to buy anything extra, is why I say that. Those are really the biggies. There is a plan to do some level of archiving or deleting unwanted data. Right now today, that's more of a DBA exercise for you to do that. We are looking at building some type of UI to do that as well. So you can say, keep 7 years, but everything else get rid of, like that kind of thing you'll be able to do. After that, we run into what we call futures. We're looking at, if you know what the simplified user interface, we call it SUI internally. The cloud UIs are all that. If you go down to the demo grounds, everything has that. It's kind of like your iPhone or your iPad with the cards. It's kind of that look and feel. It's a pretty cool look and feel. It's very navigable. It's much more modern, let's put it that way. There's a look to add some of that to the on-prem side. We've actually talked about the web-based metadata editor. We actually have a working prototype of it. It's a little slow, so it has to get tuned, but that's something. The reason we want to do that is the versioning around support for Windows, and you got a new computer, and will it install is a pain, right? So moving it to the web gets rid of, it'll run, you can use a Mac and you'll be able to use, this. You can't use Metadata Manager on a Mac unless you run a Windows VM, like that kind of stuff. It becomes a hassle, right? So moving to the web gives you that. That also has features that are not available in Metadata Manager. You can do export your hierarchies to Excel. You can do multiple users collaborating on hierarchies together. You can do comparisons between versions automatically as part of the tool. So there's some cool stuff in here that's above and beyond Metadata Manager, but it's at its core Metadata Manager just without the client install. And then probably the last one of any that we'll talk about is the simulated postings. Think about when you create a journal entry today and you post it and you consolidate and then you realize you didn't do it right, and so then you got to unpost it, then you got to fix it, then you got to consolidate again. This just basically lets me simulate the posting to see if you're doing it right, and then you can commit it. So it's really just allowing you to see, is this right? Saves you time for the most part. Unless you're really good and you never make that mistake, then cool, you don't have to use this, but that's the point of this is complicated hierarchies, never quite sure how an lim's going to work out. Let's just make sure we understand the impact of it. Those are some of the things that we're looking at as sort of part of the future. You probably saw this Sunday or have heard this, but if you haven't, the on-prem roadmap has changed from a support policy. I list HFM, but this applies to all of EPM. Plan any EPM product this applies to. So 11.123 will have what we call Severity 1 defect fixing until May of next year. So currently, if you look at the lifetime support policy, there was no more S1 defect fixing. 11.123 will have that until May of next year. 11.124 Premier support has been extended till December of 2020. So it was originally April 2018. It got bumped to December 18. We had to work through a bunch of Oracle bureaucracy, just legally things, and now it's going to be December 2020. So it's a 2.5-year bump from what it originally was. Remember, Premier support is 5 years from when something was released. So this actually gives you an extra 2.5 years. And that's Premier. That's not extended or any of that kind of stuff. So that will give you basically defect fixing, third-party updates, enhancements, all those PSUs, et cetera. So that's one of those, if you're an 11.124 person, you're 11.123 wondering what, you have more runway now with those versions. And the next major will be 11.2. This has been referred to in the past as R12 and 11.125 because we can't decide on numbering, but we finally decided it's 11.2. This will come out sometime. The plan now is Q1 of 2019, so year and a half-ish. The FMW12G is Fusion middleware. What that means is there's a whole middleware layer we use from an Oracle stack that gives you all sorts of support for SQL Server 2016, different Java servers. Like it really is sort of what gives you all the platform support that your IT group likes. That release will have all of that. And then that will have defect fixing updates, et cetera, through December of 2030. How many people plan to retire before 2030? Yeah, cool. All right, me too. Either way, some other person in 2030 will be here discussing that. No, but it's a pretty substantial change, and it's one that we targeted for this conference. We've been working on this a while, and we wanted to announce it at this conference, and we just had to jump through some hoops. So the good thing is this is all official. Matt Bradley covered it on Sunday. If you know Matt, Matt's the chief of all of us. But it's great because it gives you a lot more runway. It gives you a lot more power to look and evaluate and see what's right for you, what do I want to do. I think the question people generally have here is, what's the difference between 11.124 and 11.2? For the most part, the differences are going to be 11.2 is going to have more newer third-party support because of that Fusion middleware. So it's going to give you probably, that's still getting worked out. It's going to have a little better platform support and a longer window of platform support. And it will have a few enhancements, like minor enhancements above and beyond what's available in 11.124. So like some of these things, right, would be 11.2 only. But if you think about it, that's sort of the difference is it's an incremental 11.124 final PSU to 11.2 is an incremental feature update. Don't expect a ton of new features, but it will give you a platform window to go into the 2020s. Can't believe we're talking that far out in the future. So any questions on this? Because I think this is a big change and it's pretty important to understand before I move on. Oh, yeah. So the question is, have we thought about using the Smart View editor for metadata for HFM? Yes, that has been thought. There's actually some work that can happen. So yeah, I think that's more of an 11.2. There was, yes. So the HFM futures are things that we're considering, right? Those are items. I think we're evaluating different items for that. Whether those are the right thing. These are great conferences for us to get feedback. We've already had some feedback of other things people would like to see, so I think we're still knocking out what's the right approach for it. But those are items that, these items, right, would be in that, they're not going to be before 11.2. Okay, that's the way to look at it. These guys are all in 11.24, but these guys, any of these wouldn't come before that period. Safe harbor, things can change. We might decide the simplified user interface makes a ton of sense and do it sooner, but the plan right now is not for those things to happen. Okay, I'll move on. So that's what's happening on the FM side. A lot of innovation around focused innovation, revised support policy. I believe the lifetime support policy has been updated. If you don't know what that is or where to find it, you can actually just Google Oracle Lifetime Support Policy and you'll grab it right there. It's very easy to get to that way. Googling anything Oracle and whatever you want. If you're wondering the certification matrix for Oracle, does this version support something? If you Google Oracle EPM certification matrix, first line, it has everything listed there for all of our available versions. So it's a great way to kind of get that. So we have this thing called financial consolidation and closed cloud. If you think about, how many people in here know microcontrol? I was a microcontrol admin, so we're all like super old. That's what we're admitting here. That was like 90s, right? So this is a long time ago. But microcontrol was really the first iteration of the quote-unquote Hyperion consolidation solution. That evolved into Hyperion Enterprise, which evolved into HFM, which has evolved into financial consolidation and closed cloud. These are all basically built by the same team. My team, I've been around 17 years. I have a woman on my team who designed Enterprise and designed HFM, because I think she was like employee 7 at Hyperion, and she hit her 30 year. If anyone knows Yunmin Baranski, Yunmin Yip, I know some of you do. She's been around forever. She's like the main functional architect of all these solutions. What we do with this, right, is we say to ourselves, okay, HFM came about because Enterprise had certain limitations that we wanted to improve on. FCCS comes about because the cloud is something that a lot of people want because it removes some of the infrastructure side of it. But when you move to the cloud, you also want to have a little more of a packaged application. So we've taken a lot of the best practices out of FCCS, out of HFM, and built those into FCCS. So we keep trying to carry forward what we know works, but innovate in areas where we can take advantage of newer technology. So when we did this solution, it's been out roughly a year and a half, we really had like 3 goals. We said, 1, we want to have this EPM cloud platform and build off that platform. So all of our cloud solutions are built on the exact same platform. They do everything the exact same way. They share the exact same technology, reporting, everything. It's truly just one platform. In the HFM world, right, HFM and planning were kind of two different animals. That whole thing is different now. We said HFM's an awesome tool, but it can do everything because you can write all this VB script. You can do tons of coding. I guarantee you many of in your room cannot really go ahead and look at your VB script file and make sense of it. There's a lot of partners who can, but it's a great platform, but it also builds a lot of complexity into that. We wanted to avoid a lot of that complexity, take all of that knowledge we've learned from 4,000 HFM customers, 5,000 enterprise customers, and make that more packaged. So FCCS really went for more of this, what we call best practices out of the box. There's a lot more functionality that's just available out of the box that you enable versus you build in an HFM app. We said let's focus on not just consols, but do the whole close. So we actually deliver as part of a packaged cloud application essentially all the things you could get today in on-prem from FDM EE, HFM, financial close management, FR, SmartView. It's all just bundled into one solution, one integrated solution in the cloud. So it's a little bit more efficient than how you would do that in the on-prem world. And then, of course, everybody wants to integrate their data, all the security, all of that. So we sort of said these are the three guiding forces that we want to follow. When I talk about the best practices, simple things like everybody in this room most likely has data source as a custom dimension. People do multi-gap. People do, everybody has cash flow written into the rules. Everybody builds roll forwards into their rules. CTA, like all these things are sort of standard calcs as part of HFM script. Those are all out of the box in FCCS. You just either turn those on and they work automatically, like roll forwards, things like that, or you do a little bit of configuration like cash flow. You basically do a little bit of mapping, and then it runs automatically at every legal entity level. So if you think about it, it makes sense, right? We know all these apps because we've worked with you guys forever. I've been around 17 years. So we might as well take some of that knowledge that we know and bake it into the product and not force you to have to keep rebuilding it every time. The cloud, if you're not aware, has a standard update cycle that is not controlled by you, but it happens automatically. So we can deliver new functionality automatically every month. That functionality then means your application today and in 6 months you might have a business change. We've added new functionality to do something. That business change, we've provided that functionality. You can now just go in and quote-unquote enable that functionality into your app. So when we push out new functionality, we push it into basically what's a little holding area. You go into the application, you go configure application, or application configure, and then you see the list of functionality available to you. You check a box and you can enable it, and we push that into your app. So we do the updates, we do the upgrades, but you guys still have control over when that functionality shows up in your application. But it's there. You don't have to go through that upgrade process. So this best practice is what we have today, and what we have in a year will keep growing because we're constantly adding new things into the software. From the close process, we track we have a fully integrated tracking of all your close activities. So you all publish a close calendar. That close calendar has activities you do from workday minus whatever to workday 12 or whatever. We track all those activities. We have reporting and dashboards against them. We have just full process around that. So that's just standard part of the solution. There's no separate, it just exists and it's just there. You can do all your reporting. The cool thing here is, as you build up your closes in the process, you start figuring out, you know what, on workday 3 in APAC, or Asia Pac, we're always late. So let's drill into that and see what's happening. You know what, it's always coming out of Singapore, and it's this one person who's always late. Well, is that person overworked? Is that a training issue? Do they have a second job driving Uber? What is it, right? But at least you have access to this information. So it's all about giving you insight into the close, but letting you optimize and be efficient around that. If you're familiar with on-prem, that's basically the close manager part of on-prem. It's just baked into the solution now today. The supplemental piece from FCM is also just baked into the product. That lets you do all your footnote gathering and that kind of thing. If you have a process today where you load a trial balance, and say your investment data is $500 million, then you send out to a bunch of users to gather what all the details are for that investment to make sure you have it for disclosures or reporting. You can do that automatically through the software. And those values will tie. You can build in validation reports, which basically say this value from the trial balance has to equal the sum of this supplemental information I've gathered. You can have all sorts of things you can do, but it's designed to be broader than just do the consol. It's designed to manage the close. The data integration is basically FDME in the cloud, so it's the same thing. You all use FDM today. You understand the process. It's the same process in the cloud with all the auditing, security, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of this, by the way, this is FR, this is SmartView, this is FDM in the cloud. It's kind of the same stuff that you use today. So once again, we're not reinventing the wheel with what we're doing here. We're innovating where we think innovation helps. The example I always use is nobody likes the intercompany report in HFM. They like the enterprise intercompany report better. We use the enterprise model here because we knew that, right? So it's an example where we've been around doing this stuff a while, so we actually know what people like. When you create things, you don't have to carry forward a bad idea. Makes no sense. Carry forward the good ideas, innovate when you got the bad ideas. So just some examples of it. We'll skip this because we do a lot of stuff. Some important points to note. FCCS has been out roughly a year. We have, this is one of those tricky ones because I'm not supposed to say things, but hundreds of customers, and that hundreds is approaching that four-ish, so around 400 customers across the world. So I say that because I think people oftentimes don't realize sort of the trajectory of where this is going. And your organization might say, I'm not quite sure about it, but other organizations are. Okay, that's the one thing to note is this isn't customer number 5, this is approaching customer number 400. So that's an important thing to kind of point out. The other thing is, what's our roadmap? Because FCCS is not HFM. HFM's been around for a long time. But our goal for FCCS is to have HFM, what we call parity, by basically summer of this year. So for purposes of this presentation, let's just say open world, which is the first week of October. I live in Florida. It's summer every month, so it doesn't really matter. But basically, that's sort of the goal is this summer time frame, have that functional parity. So what that means to you or anyone is FCCS is an option. It's not a requirement. Right? HFM Row Map has all those things, but if your company has a cloud strategy, or that's something that interests you, or you want to get out of the managing of servers and DBAs and backups, it's an option. It's something to look at, right? Roadmap-wise, a bunch of things are available in the software today that we can do. The things that we're working on in the very short term, this is all sort of my short-term stuff, is the parity items. So I think I have slides on them. We're working on having, FCCS today has 11 system dimensions and 2 custom. The 2 will become 6. So you'll have a total of 17 dimensions available to you. If you use more than that, we can talk. I don't know how your users are ever going to find data, because that's an awful lot of point of view changing. But that being said, we're working on going up to 17 custom dimensions. We will have the ability to have custom calculations. Remember I talked about out of the box. We're delivering roll forwards, cash flow calcs, all those things out of the box. Our goal is that's 100% and you don't have to do any calc writing, but that's not realistic. So we're going to add in the ability for you to do some custom calculations. It leverages Calc Manager. So if you've done Calc Manager, you're going to write, you can use that, where you can supplement the 10 or 20 or whatever percent is missing that's not a package calculation. I'll tell you this much. If we see 10, 20% of the customers doing the same custom calc, we're going to end up just making that an out of the box, right? That's kind of the advantage we can do, is we can keep kind of bringing more packaged stuff into the software. But that will be available for you to be able to write those custom calcs. It's not like a VB script file where you open up Notepad++ and you start writing VB script. This is very different. It's UI driven. You'll be able to see where in the calculation order things are existing and specify where you want to do your calculation. It's basically sub-calculate in HFM, but with a UI and with a little more intuitive flow to it. You can already today do the sub-translate in HFM. If you want to go into HFM and write some custom translation override, you do that in sub-translate. FCCS, you just do it through a UI. It's a configuration screen. It's not script writing. So we're trying to get out of the script writing routine and try to get to the UI-driven, you guys can understand it, you can visualize where these things are happening process. Then the next is we get to what we call our advanced consolidations. Advanced consolidations is effectively pecan less than 100, minority interest, equity eliminations, rapidly changing ownerships. If you have an organization where you own lots of companies with partial ownerships and that changes on a regular basis, in HFM you do that through manage ownership with methods and all of that. Same process is being developed here. So you'll be able to basically go in, specify the different ranges that apply to your methods. These slides are available, by the way, on the download, so you can just grab them. So basically, you define what your methods are based on the different holding and ownership percentages. Those methods automatically get applied to your entity structure. You can override those methods if you don't agree with them. And then basically, you have rules that are executed as part of those methods. We will deliver preceded rules that do those calculations, but you can certainly write your own or edit and take ours and edit them if you have special consolidation needs that aren't met by our preceded. So you get the point of what we're trying to do. Deliver as much out-of-the-box functionality, but give you some flexibility because your businesses all have some sort of flexible needs to it. It accomplishes the same thing as HFM, but HFM is about a lot of scripting, and that works. We're trying to innovate here and do more UI-driven so users in the room can understand and see the flow and do it themselves. That's the goal of this. By delivering more functionality, you also should be able to get these things into your application and up and running quicker. The goal is to compress the time that it involves to get this software up and running. This is, and then the last thing that we're working on, and this is particularly cool, is what we call integrated EPM business processes. So fundamentally, you have the opportunity to own, you might have a planning process and a consolidation process in the cloud. You might have consolidations in the cloud, and you might have planning on-prem, but you want to have a process for a user to navigate through versus having them go to this system and that system and that system. Perfect example is this one. I'm in tax reporting cloud service. It's kind of like HTTP for the cloud. As part of my tax process, I have different calculations. My package, I go to the RTA calculation, my TAR, my ETR. Eventually, the outcome of that is I need to post a journal entry to my consolidation system. Well, do I jump over to consolidations and post that journal? No, I just click on the tab right there, and it automatically opens up journals. So it's a process-driven flow for EPM Cloud versus separate products where users have to navigate. For the partners in the room, this is a cool thing because it lets you build to your customer's process, not to the product. To you guys, it just means you don't have to worry so much about I go to this system to do that and that system to do that. No, you just have a process flow. We have this ability in the software now where I can have these vertical and horizontal tabs. As I navigate across my tabs, I have multiple, right? So I can click on EPRCS plan reports, and I can have 4 activities as part of that. You can bring together, I log on, I load my data, I run a consolidation, I create some reports, I do my account reconciliations, and I begin my forecast. I would just do all that through this one flow. I wouldn't log on to other systems, I wouldn't navigate anywhere, I would just go across one flow. Yeah. So this is what's called, so the question is, let me just explain it without repeating. How's that? I always try to think for the recording. What this is basically what we call a navigation flow. A navigation flow is similar to a task list in HFM, where I list the activities that the user has to do. You create navigation flows, administrators create navigation flows, and you assign them to different users. So it lets user Rich might have access to activities that someone else doesn't have. So you create navigation flows based on those activities. And then that's what that user steps through. So they log on, their home screen might have a couple custom navigation flows, Workday 1, Workday 3, Workday 7. They just navigate through those. Different users have different navigation flows. Navigation flows can be user specific, they can be process specific. So you have 10 users in your organization who all have the same job, they're just geographically different. You could assign them all the same navigation flow, but based on their security, they would just have access to different entities and things like that. This is all about making the process what's important, not the product. And your users don't work in context of product, they do process-driven things. So and this is coming in August. So this is a really cool thing because it will basically start blurring the line of what am I doing and just let you focus on process. This stuff's possible because it's EPM Cloud, a single platform, so users don't need to know. They just have to go by a process. Yeah?
Will this be limited at data center level, or will it be give the ability to cross data centers?
So the question is, will this be limited at a data center level, or can you cross data centers? You can cross data centers. Yeah. The other thing that we're working on is what we call this process of robotics or process automation. So think about it in the close. There's a lot of activities that happen that can be automated or can just manually, like you're waiting for something to finish so you can do something else. I need the GL to close. I need these journals to post. Just they're automatic processes. So you introduce something like robotics, and basically what that lets you do is streamline your close process because sort of non-manual tasks can be automated. They can be scheduled. They can just happen automatically. You can have end-user tasks, automated tasks, or system monitoring tasks. System monitoring basically just sits there and says, is something done? Is something done? It's done. Okay, next task, next notification. And it really helps sort of monitor and streamline your overall process. This is a big thing right now for a lot of people because there's a lot of complicated actions that happen in a process, like a close process, but you want to go ahead and make sure they're all, they're all kind of monitored. So we have an agent that sits there. It can monitor cloud processes. It can monitor on-prem processes. It can do GL. It can do close. It can do all over. But it really just sits there and keeps track of everything and kicks things off. When things are done, if there's errors, it'll basically just help run the process. So robotics is really kind of a big thing right now because it helps take care of the chaos, right? And that's what this is really about. It's just bringing structure to the chaos. You can see our goal here is we've got the EPM cloud on the right. We've got that RPA connector in the middle. And then it can connect to anything else. So basically that process right there is managed by this guy. So that robotics process automation, that RPA connector, is just sitting there saying, here's all these things you want me to keep track of. I'm keeping track of them. I'm notifying, I'm kicking off, I'm running it. But it's just about streamlining your process. So if you wait for something to be done and you wait for someone to call you when it's done, that's just something RPA could take care of. All right? These are all ways where you can just streamline processes that happen on a consistent, regular basis. So that's something that we're working on. Those are all things, everything I just talked about, are items that we're working on for a short period. I'll say open world, but if you want to say this year, whatever, but they're all, here and now type items that we have demonstrations of, et cetera. Yeah, question. It's all part of so the question is licensing. This is all just FCCS stuff, right? So FCCS has a price. You guys can look that up actually online, but it's all just available. The next stuff we're working on after that, so these are items, think about these as being next year. We have seen a lot of interest from people about taking a journal entry module that you guys today post journals into ERP, into EPM. Some people want to do it to budget, like all different sources. Having one journal module that can connect to all those different sources, that will have workflow, that will have attachments, that will have sign-offs. So your users don't go to different places to do different journals. They go to one journal module, and that module handles all the validations, the mappings, et cetera, to the different sources. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of people who want something like this because they have sort of all those different systems, and they want just one way to do it, one way for their users to do it. We will always be adding out additional consolidation information, more out-of-the-box content, more seeded methods. I think we realize that HFM over time has built up a level of complexity of functionality. When we say parity, we mean HFM customers will have that option, but certainly there's always going to be some more things for us to be adding into it. And we're very focused on adding pre-built content. We want you guys to have sort of that library of things, that library of best practices where you can enable those in based on changing business needs, expansion of your product. And pre-built content can be additional dashboards. It can be custom reports. Remember, all those are artifacts that we just deliver into the software. When you create an application, your application comes with dashboards, forms, report, like all that kind of stuff just comes. We're always adding more to that. So the question is, okay, HFM, you guys have it, you're using it. We've got a roadmap that shows you where it's going and what our different support is. You've learned a little bit about FCCS and what FCCS does and how it kind of fits in. I think the question for people right now is, so what do we do? Well, I think there's some questions you have to ask, which is, what's your organization's view on the cloud is one thing. We are getting, remember, EPM Cloud has about 2,500 customers today. So an EPM Cloud is, planning, consolidations, all those different activities. 2,500 customers is a lot, and there's some big ones that are in there. So you have to say, does it make sense? Do we want to stay on HFM? Do we upgrade to 11.124 because that takes us through 2020? Is our company's cloud strategy short term? Is it long term? We have customers who basically say all their systems are being pushed to the cloud, so they're by the IT organization. So how do you want to fit into that? That's somewhat an organizational discussion. I think from an Oracle or Hyperion perspective, we think you have two valid options. Right? I think FCCS is an option for you to consider. There's definitely some benefits of FCCS. It is a single EPM platform. Right? So this isn't two separate products, this isn't different things, it's just a single platform. It's a lot more configure and a lot less customize. So FM's awesome. Trust me, I've done it for 15 of my 17 years. But there's some, we have customers with like 30,000 lines of VB script in their rule file. It's insane, right? So we want to get away from all of that scripting. We want to get away from where you guys have to, in order to manage your application, be a VB.NET or a VB script expert. And we want you to be able to configure it through the UI. It's the goal, right? That's the stuff, those are the tools we're doing. I always say leverage best practices because, for God's sakes, I've been doing this job 17 years. I was, part of the HFM developments. My team is older than me. So we know what people have been doing. We've been working it. That's what we bake into the product. So it's a progression of FM. It's not like something brand new. I like the always up to date. That's a fear factor for some companies, right? Because you guys want to control your upgrade, and the system, we do those upgrades or those updates for you. But you don't ever have to say to yourself, you're on 11.122, which is a 5-6-year-old version, and there's been a whole bunch of stuff that's happened in the interim, and you're not going to get it because you're old version. That kind of goes away. So everyone's on the same version. At some point, that's what we call crowdsourcing, right? When everyone's on the same version, everyone's kind of testing and working through that. So it's a better sort of operational model. But that being said, there's definitely some benefits from the cloud side that I think are worth thinking about. So to me, from an HFM standpoint, you have those options. You can stay in HFM until you feel comfortable. I guarantee you, organizationally, at some point, your applications are going to move to the cloud. That's not because Oracle says that. It's just you got to look at the world, right? That's kind of where the world is moving from a system standpoint. ERPs are moving to the cloud. Planning apps are moving. Every vendor in this space is going cloud-based or is cloud-based. In the account reconciliation space, there's no vendor that's on-prem based, I think, that I know of. So that model is kind of one. You just have to figure out how it fits into your organization's world. But I think from our side, FCCS offers those options. And we still, like on-prem, we have the financial close suite, we do account recs, we do all those different things. The same model exists in the cloud. Right? So we offer, but remember, all of this can be built as one navigation flow or one process. So you could do this. You wouldn't be jumping into different products. You basically just build a process flow that fits what your users are. So the question is, those are still separate licenses. Today they are, right? Today, I think there's going to be some changing to the licensing model just to, reflect. Sales has a perspective here that we have to work our way through, but the reality is the single platform for the solutions, we have a platform team that basically builds roughly 50 to 70% of the functionality that all the services consume. My task is just to build the closed level functionality on top of that platform. Other people build planning type functionality on top of that platform. But that platform delivers to all of us a level of functionality that makes all that possible. But yeah, there's certainly. So that's just something to kind of consider at there. I threw some roadmaps on here, but we don't have to go through that. I just say, how about anyone have any questions on the HFM stuff, FCCS? Any questions? I know you got one, so we'll start with you. You have multiple, don't you? You're looking down. Oh, okay. So the question is there any ability to do custom scripting in data management in the cloud? So data management is FDM in the cloud with two differences. Difference one is there's no scripting. And difference two is there's no adapters, so it's file-based, which is how most people use FDM. The scripting will come, right? So the scripting is on the roadmap. There's just a few logistics to work through. In the interim, there are ways where you can do it sort of outside of the system. So you can take a file and do some work on that. You can also just use FDM in the cloud. Like you could use on-prem FDM with these cloud apps, exactly the same as how you use, say, HFM today. There's no, that part totally works. So actually, we have customers who, if you're using HFM and then you move to FCCS, you kind of unplug one, plug in the other, but your FDM stuff stays the same. There's nothing stopping you from doing that tomorrow. Yeah.
I'll ask the other half of the question. Are the adapters on the roadmap?
No, so the question is, are the adapters on the roadmap? Currently, no. I think we do have integrations, like with ERP Cloud, so Fusion Cloud, GL. We basically have a really tight integration with them where it simulates sort of the adapter concept. The way that you can do, there's something called EPM Automate, if anyone knows. EPM Automate basically takes our REST APIs and puts a wrapper around them and lets you then script things lights out. So if you want to take data from your GL, load it into a consolidation system, consolidate that data, and then report off of it, you can script all that lights out. That all can be part of a process where no interaction, no UI, no nothing. So there's ways where you can do things. They might be different than the way you do them today, but you can still kind of accomplish the same thing that you do today. Also, if you really want that stuff, you can always use FDM on-prem with the cloud apps. There's nothing stopping that process. Yeah. .11.1.3.x or 11.1.2.x? It says December 18. It hasn't been updated for the December 20. That will happen. I think they do a monthly update, so I would imagine that might flip July 1st. 1.2.3 will be May 2018, and then 1.2.4 will be December 2020. 1.2.3? 1.2.3 will go through May of 2018. Premier support. Yeah. Nothing. No. It's the only changes that are being made to that are 1.2.3 goes for another year, basically. 1.2.4 goes for an extra 2 years from that. And 1.2, 1.2 doesn't exist, so it won't be on there, but 1.2 is planned. That, I think they update that monthly. I'm not sure this cycle, but that should be up. That'll get updated sometime shortly. Yep. Yes. Extended support for .3. I don't believe there's extended support for .3, but I'd have to check on that. So if that's something you want to know, give me a card. Or actually send me an email, rich.wilkie@oracle.com, or LinkedIn me, and I'll get the answer. Yeah. Yeah, so Metadata Manager on-prem through SmartView is what he asked earlier. It's a great question. It's a good tool to do it. We do it in the cloud, right? So the cloud, we use it. And I think we're sort of exploring how well that will work for us. So it's quite possible that might be an 11.2 item kind of thing. That's what I mean. If you look at sort of the high, I just threw a couple high-level ideas up there. 2 people have asked about that, so that tells me that we need to bubble that one up for consideration for 11.2. That's why these conferences are so valuable. Other stuff. Okay, so that was a perfect hour. So rich.wilkie or LinkedIn, if you have any other questions, I can always give you a card, but my name's not that hard to figure out. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Appreciate it. Have a good conference.